The most important thing to me at that stage was thinking not necessarily of the list, but the fact that here we are of many high-profile individuals taking part in what were classed more or less as secret meetings, taking place in Westminster, looking at the age of consent, looking at the activities of Pi, and almost trying to dismiss, it would seem, some of the allegations made against some colleagues of theirs by the Dickens report. And that, to me, seemed of the nucleus of a story.
In the recent investigations into the existence of a paedophile ring in the UK government, two former MPs, Geoffrey Dickens and Barbara Castle, are said to have assembled dossiers on the activities of paedophiles and paedophile groups connected to the government. In both cases, the documents claimed to have been produced by Dickens and Castle have disappeared. The dossier allegedly produced by Labour MP Barbara Castle was brought to light in 2014 by Don Hale, former editor of the Bury Messenger newspaper. Hale's claims, along with the testimonies of former law enforcement officers and civil servants, have implicated Special Branch in the protection of paedophiles within the establishment. When Hale came forward, he gave a statement to the police that he had received documents from Barbara Castle in 1984 regarding meetings held at Westminster by the Paedophile Information Exchange, or PI, a notorious activist group pushing for lowering the legal age of consent in the UK. Hale stated that Castle had acquired minutes from PI meetings, at which several senior politicians were in attendance. Hale also asserted that Castle had provided him with a typewritten list of 16 MPs connected to PI, as well as a list of approximately 30 prominent supporters and financiers.
And started to feed me some information and bring in some documents. And, you know, it was quite explosive, really, in terms of what she was showing me here. That there was a paedophile ring operating within the powers of Westminster, and that many of the members were actively supporting the PI network, the Paedophile Information Exchange network. And I find it quite amazing. And she gradually came in with more and more paperwork.
Do we know where she was getting the documents from?
Yeah, she got contacted within the House, and they were feeding information to her. She'd obviously been an MP for donkey's years, yes, really, but had sort of left there, quit, and gone as a Euro MP, but she still kept in touch with them. And a lot of her contacts were feeding her really serious information here about people that were meddling in the PI network. And the aim really was to try and get enough support within Westminster to make it legal to have sex with children. And she was absolutely appalled by this and wanted to obviously put a stop to it.
Among the names on the lists were the following: Conservative MP Rhodes Boyson. Castle alleged that Boyson had been responsible for the distribution of Magpie, the magazine of the Paedophile Information Exchange. Boyson was a member of the Conservative Monday Club, an organisation implicated in allegations of child sexual abuse at the Elm Guest House. Conservative MP Keith Joseph, accused by Anthony Daly as being present at parties where underage rent boys were abused. Liberal MP Jeremy Thorpe. Thorpe stood trial in 1979 under the charge of paying a hitman £10,000 to murder his former gay lover. On a visit to New York in the early 1960s, Thorpe picked up a rent boy in Times Square. The FBI would later contact Special Branch to inform them of Thorpe's behaviour. Conservative MP Leon Brittan, implicated in the Colin Peters paedophile ring that was investigated by Operation Hedgerow. Two police officers on Hedgerow testified that their surveillance work was shut down due to Brittan turning up at one of the sites. Former Prime Minister Edward Heath. Don Hale claimed that Barbara Castle had accused Heath of abusing boys taken from care homes on board his yacht, the Morning Cloud. Charles Napier, former treasurer of the Paedophile Information Exchange and half-brother of MP John Whittingdale, convicted in 2014 for sexually abusing 23 boys under the age of 16. Diplomat Peter Hayman, a member of PI. Hayman was investigated by the police for the possession and posting of paedophilic material in 1978, but managed to escape prosecution. In preparation for publishing an article in the Bury Messenger about the PI meetings within Westminster, Don Hale said that he had called several of the people mentioned in Barbara Castle's documents, including Jeremy Thorpe. In Hale's police statement, he stated that Thorpe was stunned by his call and the questions posed to him. The following day, Hale received a surprise visit from Liberal MP Cyril Smith, who demanded that Hale hand over all the documents he had acquired from Castle. Hale described Smith's behaviour as being extremely aggressive, abusive, nervous and agitated. Hale refused to give Smith the documents, causing Smith to leave with the parting threat that Hale was making a huge mistake and would be sorry. Cyril Smith is now widely acknowledged as a notorious sexual abuser of children. The next morning, Hale claimed that his office was raided by a group of over a dozen special branch officers, who pinned him to the wall while his office was searched and the incriminating papers seized. The officers also allegedly waved a D notice in front of Hale, threatening him with arrest for perverting the course of justice if he tried to publish anything about the existence of paedophiles in Westminster. A D notice is a request for media outlets not to print any material that may be damaging to national security. Although a request was made to the Ministry of Defence to find a record of the D notice allegedly served to Hale, the MOD asserted that it was not possible to produce any documentary evidence, citing the D notice committee's Code of Confidentiality and periodic destruction of archived records. However, Don Hale is not the only editor who claims to have been served a D notice when attempting to report on child abuse by MPs. Hilton Timms, the former news editor of the Surrey Comment, alleged that he too was given a D notice in 1984 after receiving information about the Elm Guest House and its connections to Parliament. Hale's account of the actions of Special Branch was supported by a former commander of the Flying Squad of Scotland Yard, John O'Connor. In an interview with Hale, he highlighted the state of affairs in the early 1980s. Special Branch were a law unto themselves. They were the government's protection unit. They were totally ruthless. They worked directly for their puppet masters at Westminster and above. There was a strong rumour around Scotland Yard that there was a big paedophile ring in Westminster, and that a major investigation was highly likely. We remained on standby for something really special, but then it all just seemed to die a natural death. The alleged treatment of Don Hale and the information passed to him by Barbara Castle is mirrored in how allegations against Cyril Smith were handled while he was the Liberal MP for Rochdale. Former Lancashire police detective Jack Tasker stated that he had begun an investigation into Smith in 1969 after being asked to by Rochdale Borough police officers. The Rochdale officers told him that they had twice tried to investigate Smith, but both times they were shut down by the Chief Constable of Rochdale, Patrick Ross. Jack Tasker claimed that his investigation was also halted by two men who visited his office and demanded that he hand over every scrap of paper he had on Smith.
The names have gone now, but they didn't ring a bell at all with me. But they showed me the things and said, then the thing was, you've been investigating Cyril Smith. Yes. Where's your colleague, the DC coroner? I said, he'll be on his way. He'll have left Middleton where he lived and he'll be coming to pick me up. Where's all the stuff? I think I said, in that drawer. I said, it's locked. I said, open it. So I opened it. At that stage, Tom walked in, so I told Tom what was happening. Sat us both down and they said, we want every scrap of paper that you've got for the Smith inquiry. Notes you've made, anything, drafts of reports, anything at all, we want it now. We're taking over the investigation. You are to not do anything. You're not to go into Rochdale unless it's some other duty. You're not to interview anybody. You're not to speak to anybody about it. And if you do, there will be serious consequences.
Who were they? Who do you
I suspect they were Special Branch. I don't think he was treated because he was Cyril Smith. I think he was treated because other people were rather worried that if Cyril Smith went before a court and he would open his mouth.
He had connections in high places.
I think he would have opened his mouth and told them.
Former Special Branch officer Tony Robinson has also come forward, declaring that he saw a complete police file on Cyril Smith's crimes at Special Branch HQ, all ready for prosecution, and having already been submitted to the Department of Public Prosecutions. Robinson also claimed that he had taken a call from MI5 to hand over the file to them. In 2014, the Metropolitan Police searched the Barbara Castle archives at Oxford University's Bodleian Library in an attempt to find the Pi meeting documents. Nothing was found. Tim Hulbert is a former employee of the Voluntary Services Unit of the Home Office. He testified to the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse that the Home Office provided funding for Pi at the request of Special Branch.
Secondly, he made the point, and as I said in answer to Mr. Altman, I believe he said to me that it was funded at the request of Special Branch because of their interest in maintaining a watchful eye on paedophiles. And we know, I think, that at that stage there was at least one inquiry going on by the Obscene Publications Squad into Pi. So, that takes care of that. The third issue was in relation to my role, which as a consultant in relation to what was, and he emphasised the fact that it was a renewal of grant, and therefore did not require the regular input which a brand new grant would have had from a consultant, and therefore it was inappropriate for me to pursue it.
This is a paraphrase. He essentially told you it's none of your business. Is that fair?
Yeah.